Disclaimer. All views expressed on What Makes Us Fire are solely those of the person or persons giving them. What Makes Us Fire does not represent or claim to represent any particular city or fire department, and therefore make the claim that all views and standpoints are affiliated with What Makes Us Fire and with What Makes Us Fire only. Any mention of certain fire departments or cities within the interviews are solely for informational and opinion-based dialogue. In short, if you have a problem with what's published, just say something about it and don't be a Richard.
So why are we here?
We're here because a lot of people have been asking, and really, I need to do a better job at telling what makes us fire, where it came from, what it was meant to be, and what it's supposed to be. But really, what makes us fire is my story. And that's what started it all. And I want to be able to share that story with people so they know why I created the nonprofit that I did. And it goes a lot deeper than just wanting to help other people not go through what I went through, And that's basically why I wanted to do something like this. I wanted to share my story. I've been on other podcasts sharing little bits and pieces. I never really took the time to sit down and tell my story and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's
Podcast that you do that's Josh Chaos.
Kihas. You're
Chaos.
yeah. You're getting there.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Last time it was Aquinas.
Yeah, they weren't even close.
So Josh Chaos.
Kihas.
Chaos.
We literally just said it
Yeah.
10 seconds ago. Yes, this is the first podcast.
Chaos.
Kihas, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Kihas. No, yes, this will be the first podcast on What Makes Us Fire that is solely focused on my story, which I have not done yet. And after 3 months of not putting out an episode, figured now's the time to come back. And if I'm going to come back, I'm going to do it right.
Let's get into it. Who's Josh Kihas?
Who is Josh Kihas? Man, that is a really in-depth question. The basic facts: son of Sam and Oksana, Navy vets, born in Virginia, raised in El Paso, and moved to the Houston area. Firefighter now, grown up doing a bunch of different things. You would say lost at times. I'm a father. I'm someone now that's trying to help with mental health crisis in fellow civil service members. It's a really hard conversation when people ask, like, who are you, right? A lot of people want to say what they do, and they tie what they do with who they are. And it's a really difficult question because, like, who I am or who I consider myself to be is a good person. I consider myself to be a thoughtful person, a helpful person. I am finally happy and content with who I am. I am saved by not only the grace of God, but the grace of myself for putting in the work. That question's so loaded because people, when you ask somebody that question, like I said, they want to say what they do, right? Like, I'm a firefighter, I help people, I do all this stuff. Well, that's great, but that's what you do. Like, but who are you? Like, why do you do that? What brought that out of you? And that's a really hard question to answer.
Were you always good?
No.
Who was that person before?
The question was I always grateful? Was I always helpful? Was I always a good person? The answer is no, I wasn't. But the reason for that is such a deeper story, and we might as well just go ahead and jump into it. I can tell you right now, I don't remember anything from my childhood before the age of 7. I don't remember anything. Something happened to me when I was younger, and it changed the course of how I live my life. And I only realized that through, therapy and help and stuff like that. But without beating around the bush, I'll just come out and say it. At the age of 7, I was walking home from school. My parents were going through a divorce, and I was abducted, molested by a male and a female, and then tossed to the side. And at that time, I knew my parents were going through a divorce, so I never said anything. I lived with that until about the age of 18. And when I did finally say something about it, nobody knew what to say. What do you say to somebody that waited almost 11 years to finally speak up about what happened to them? You can't really do anything at that point. The damage has been done. The unhealthy coping mechanisms have already been in place. They're there, they're happening. And I'm able to speak like that now because I realized everything that I went through. Beforehand, I would have told you, it's just who I am. The type of person is who I am. Some people, or at least I would consider somebody that went through something like that and never said anything about it, I would consider them broken. Not knowing how to live life, right? And I didn't. I developed coping mechanisms to make myself seem normal. I grew up very much so a womanizer. If a woman liked me, I was all for it. I was all for it. And it didn't matter if I was with somebody at the time or not. I was a teenager. I was what they called a player. As a teenager, I was. And that went up into my late teens, early 20s. And I thrived on anybody showing me affection because of what happened to me when I was younger. I had to get the idea that some guy shoving his crotch in my face, like, that wasn't me, right? I am not gay. Not, like, that didn't do, like, so I did everything I could to possibly combat that. And in my head, the idea to combat that was, well, if there's a female that likes me, I'm gonna kiss her, I'm gonna touch her, I'm gonna have her touch me. Like, that was how I can combat that. I grew up homophobic. And I don't think people understand what that term means. Homophobic means to be afraid. It's a fear. And I was afraid. Deathly afraid. Didn't have hate for them. No hate. I was scared that because they were homophobic, that they were capable of doing something to me like that guy did. And that's something I lived with. And because of how I developed those coping mechanisms to treat people around me, I had to be in control, man. I had to be in control. I had to manipulate the situations, the conversations, the relationships that I was in to make sure that I didn't feel like I was discarded again. One of the biggest things I remember from that whole thing, and I don't remember a lot, was I went completely dead inside when everything was happening. I just shut down. My body, there was no fight or flight. It was literally just nothing. And I remember these words, and they'll haunt me forever. But the guy said, "This kid's fucking broken." And they threw me out of the car. They wanted me to scream. They wanted me to yell. They wanted me to fight. And I didn't. I didn't know what to do. And it's scary to think that had I done those things, where I would have been.
Do you think hindsight? Do you think in hindsight that because you were acting that you wouldn't get nomination? Because it could have been worse.
It could have been worse, absolutely.
Do you think in hindsight, looking back, that kind of made you to be very high power?
At that point in time, absolutely not.
Right.
I mean, I was a kid. In hindsight, maybe, I don't know. But I do know that because that reaction got me out of it, whenever there was a stressful situation, whether it be an argument with a spouse or a very stressful situation where, you know, about to get in a car wreck or something, like, I shut down. If there's a fight or I was put in a position that I felt like something bad might happen to me, I shut down. I didn't react. I completely went numb to everything. That's what got me out of the shitty situation before, so I guess in my head, that's how I reacted to things. That when bad things happened, that's how I reacted. And it's not a healthy way to react. It's a very detrimental thing. Puts me in some situations more danger, right?
Those other circumstances, was that a conscious decision, or was that
It was subconscious. It just,
first choice was subconscious? So, you know, looking back, it's great that you can see that that's what that was, right? But in the moments, it was a subconscious reaction to just shut it off.
shut everything. And I think what happened was, because it worked out for me in that situation, my mind automatically adjusted to that. And so from that point on, it was always a subconscious reaction. I never really thought, hey, if I just do nothing, everything's gonna be okay. That thought never really went through my head. It was just, it happened. I just shut down. One of the biggest things that became a detriment was my relationship with friends, you know, romantic relationships. Whenever there was an argument or a fight, I just shut down. Shut down, went, sat in the corner, said nothing, did nothing. Wasn't trying to ignore them. I was just trying to get myself out of a situation that I felt like could harm me. And obviously that's not healthy, right? You should be able to tackle problems as they come along and talk them out and have conversations, or be able to work through situations where if you were in danger, you should be able to do that. A healthy person should. I was not a healthy person.
You had mentioned that because your parents were going through such a problem, that's why you're still saying. Do you think that led into future mindset of, well, no one's going to care, so I'm just going to stay silent in these moments?
So the idea that no one was going to care never really crossed my mind. I got to be careful saying that. I just didn't say anything because I didn't want to cause any more trouble. Like, in my head, as a 7-year-old, in my head was, don't say anything. Mom and dad are already going through a hard time, right? You don't want to cause any more hardship right now. And so I was logical enough at that age to know that this would have caused an issue, but I wasn't logical enough that I should have said something so I can get taken care of and things could have been done. So it's this really awkward feeling of, had I said something, would I have been as fucked up as I was later on in life? Or me not saying something, was that probably the best thing to do because of my parents and what they were going through? Like, would I have made that situation worse? And then it's all hindsight, right? So you can what if all day long, and you never really know the answer. So I have learned to live with what is and what happened. I'll kill myself with the what ifs. I'll kill myself with the what if. Like, what if I did say something? What if I actually got the help I needed when I was a kid? Would I have ever been suicidal? Would I ever been a shitty person? Would I have ever been, would I have had healthy relationships growing up? You know, all those are, who knows? Who knows? Nobody knows. And I can't kill myself trying to figure that out, because if I do, there's no way out of that. I can't go into the past. Like, I can't change anything that's happened. Even if I did, there's no guarantee that it would change anything. I guess we do that because we like the idea that it could have been better. the idea that it could have been better, not necessarily that it will be better or is going to be better, but just it could have been, is comforting sometimes.
Do you think your parents' divorce affected you as well?
Oh, absolutely. I know for a fact it did. I was definitely one of those kids that fought everything that my parents did after their divorce. They saw somebody else, I fought that person tooth and nail. My stepfather, God, I love him to death. He's my dad. He's just like my dad. But I fought him tooth and nail. You know, my parents were supposed to be together, right? And part of that goes to me feeling like I was alone, and the only people that should be there for me were my parents. My dad was in the Navy. He was freaking deployed all the time for 9 months at a time on the ship. My parents divorced. My mom was a single mother. And it was just, I don't know, man. It's weird going back in hindsight as a kid. I do know for a fact it did affect me, because I didn't know that at the time it's better to have 2 happy homes than 1 miserable one. I was just so content with the miserable one because that's what it was, like that's what I was used to, that I fought tooth and nail to try to keep it, knowing no matter what I did, nothing was going to change. They're still going to do what they're going to do. I guarantee you I probably lost my mother a few boyfriends. I probably was the reason why they didn't stick around. I was too much for them. Now I apologize to my mother for that, but I was a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just fighting for what I wanted or what I thought was right, not knowing that it was much healthier for her to be out of that situation in that relationship with my father at the time. So
all of that led into affecting your relationships.
Absolutely.
Or your mental health suffered
greatly. Absolutely. So all of this put together definitely affected my mental health and my relationships going forward. For example, in high school, if I had a girlfriend and there was another girl that liked me, well, there was a new girl that liked me. So I would be just asshole enough that my current girlfriend would break up with me, right? So she looked like the one that broke up with me. I didn't do anything wrong. She broke up with me. So I'm gonna go and start talking to this girl, right? So, but I knew what I was doing. I was manipulating the situation. I was being self-sabotaging. I was self-sabotaging everything, but I was doing it knowingly. There was other parts where I was doing it unknowingly, completely unaware that I was self-sabotaging, because I could really like a girl, really like a girl, really enjoyed her company, really liked the conversations and the companionship and everything. And yet I would still find myself unknowingly on the internet or on a text message or getting a picture sent, you know, it's completely unfaithful. But in my head, it was just like, well, I'm not touching her. I'm not doing that. I'm just getting attention, right? And it was the attention that I was seeking. I was seeking female attention, because to me, like, that is what was going to overcome what happened to me as a kid. Like, the female attention is going to overcome the idea that because this guy shoved his dick in my face at 7 years old, like, I had to prove to myself I wasn't gay, or like, and I don't know why I had to do that and why that was such a strong want and will. It just what was. I don't know if it was because of family and how they talked about it, or it was because of what I saw. I mean, you gotta remember, this was early 90s. So, you know, that whole movement was still just up and coming, and people were still kind of scared to come out and stuff like that. And yeah, it was so bad that I would be with a group of friends, and, you know, sometimes I'd be like, hey man, that's gay. You know, they don't mean anything by it. They're not trying to be derogatory. They're not trying to be mean or anything like that. But as soon as they said that, I went red, completely red. I got in fist fights with some of really good friends just because they were joking around and called me gay. And obviously that was not a healthy response whatsoever. They were just joking around. They were just being funny. I mean, I have friends that are gay that will be like, hey, stop being gay. You know, it's like, they're just joking around. It's a, I know some people might hear this and be like, well, that's derogatory. At the time, it was just meant to be a joke, right? It's not to be meant to be derogatory or anything like that. But to me, it was like, you're going after my character. You're reminding me of what happened. They had no idea. They had no idea what happened to me. But it reminded me of what happened, and I went red. Completely red. Like, to the point where after the fight was done, I'm like, what happened? Completely blacked out. And so, you know, I this is a really big part of me growing up and what's happened to me and how I reacted and how my life from moving forward and in my relationship and then into my marriage, how it kind of affected everything, right? It was just, all this plays into the much bigger part of why I created what I created. And I don't think people understand that civil service members, you know, it's not just the job that gets us. We have life stresses too. We have financial stresses. We have relationship stresses. We have family stresses. We have shit that we dealt with when we were kids, stresses. Like all these, we're still human beings. And the reason why I wanted to share a lot of my human being part of my life is I don't think people really understand that when it comes to our civil service members and our military servicemen and women coming home with PTSD. I think there's so much more behind that we tend to forget about all that other stuff. There's like, oh, they went to war, or oh, they had a bad call, no wonder they have PTSD. Well, I think it's a little bit deeper than that. It's how did they handle stress and trauma before that stress and trauma was even introduced to them? Because that plays into how much any other stress and trauma later on in life is going to affect them. And we forget that conversation. And so I want to share what I went through. I want people to know who I was, what I went through, how I grew out of it. What happened to me as a kid sucks. And I couldn't have this conversation with you 2 years ago without being in tears. Sorry. And it sucks that it has to be that way. I don't think anybody should have to hold on to that by themselves like I did. It's not fair. It's not fair to yourself. It's not fair to the people around you. It's not fair to the future relationships you might have, because these are things that are going to be affecting you for the rest of your life. And we don't think it does because it happened to us when we were such younger kids and we lived our lives up to this point and we're alive and we're fine. But fuck the damage it's caused and what it put me through. And I can only imagine what other people and what they've gone through, what it put them through. Sorry, trying to hold it together.
Actually, you get an old wound that doesn't heal quick, but it just continues to scar, right? But the scars remain, they're painful scars.
You know, I wouldn't even say it's a scar, because a scar, I think very literal, right? So when a scar heals, it's actually stronger than the skin around it. It's a lot tougher. The problem with the scar is it never fades. And if it does, it's always still there, right? And it's not that it's painful, it's just a constant reminder. It doesn't have to be painful. I think what happens when we go through these traumas and these tragedies that happen to us or around us that we're exposed to and we have to deal with is that we don't allow it to scar. So we're constantly picking at it, unintentionally. We're constantly picking at the wound, right? Either by putting ourselves in situations that expose us to either more trauma or we get put in a situation and we respond to it in a way that we respond to the previous trauma that never healed it. So we're constantly picking at the scab. We're not even allowing it to scar. And it's unknowingly, it's unwittingly, it's subconscious. We don't know that we're doing it, and we're wondering why we're still hurt was because we're reacting the same way we did the first time it ever happened to us. We're constantly picking.
Take that hurt, and that hurt overflows into other portions, which would cause more damage.
Exactly.
So, like the feelings that you felt at that time, and during that phase of your life, you probably had a lot of resentment, you had a lot of fear before, but those all overflow into other portions of your life, and as you said, it affected your dating life, relationships.
Shit, it even affected my relationship with my kids later on in life. Like it literally bled into everything.
What did it take for you to finally sit with this, to even begin to work it?
So a few years before my divorce, I found myself falling into the same patterns, right? And this wasn't fair to my wife at the time, wasn't fair to my ex-wife at the time, but I was finding comfort in other women online. I never did anything physical with any other woman, but I most definitely was like, pictures, you're cute, you're hot, they send it back, oh, you're hot too. If you didn't have a wife, I'd be there. And that felt good. I'm not gonna lie, it felt good. I knew it was wrong, but in my head, it was like, well, I'm not touching him. I was emotionally cheating on my wife. And this was years prior to us divorcing, and we went through therapy for it and everything, but it bled into it. Like everything I was doing ever since I was a kid, right? Trying to overcome this idea of like, I gotta be enough for a woman. Like I gotta prove myself that I'm a woman, like I'm a woman guy, like, you know what I mean? Like that's what I go for. That's what I attract. I attract women. I don't attract, you know, like that was a big thing for me. It bled over into my marriage, and it wasn't fair to her. So when she found out, you know, we went through therapy, we went to couples counseling, and I started figuring out what was going on, and we started tackling it a little bit. The thing about couples therapy, and the thing about couples therapy, and the thing about marriage counseling is that you work on the relationship. You don't necessarily work on you. And you are the one that caused the issue, right? And the problems that you're dealing with are what caused the issue. And I didn't realize that until much later on in the marriage, is that I never really took the time to fix what I was dealing with. I fixed the issues that were causing problems in my marriage, and like that stopped. But I never really sat and started working on the actual issue that was causing all the other issues. Like the issue that, why did I even have to go to marriage counseling to begin with, right? And so that, the question being what got me to actually start dealing with it, comes much later on in my marriage and my story. And it came down to my suicide attempt and then my self-harm. And that's when I had to finally take a step back and found a therapist that was like, we're gonna dig deep into this.
I don't want to skip by that.
Yeah. Oh, we won't skip by it. We're gonna get into it, but like I want everybody. I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get everybody to understand that the mental health and everything that it encompasses. I know it sounds like it started from this one thing, but it's so much more than that. It may have started from that, but things just kept piling on from that, and it was all subconscious, self-deprecating, self-sabotaging. It was all those things piled onto this one thing that started. So this thing might have been the little pebble that got thrown into the river or thrown into the lake, and then the wakes that started are all the things that were just added on to that. So the reason why I concentrate on this so much is that I need people to understand, like, or I want people to understand, I don't need them to. I want them to understand that my human experience prior to civil service, prior to marriage, prior to even being grown, it caused so much other issues that I don't truly believe people understand how bad something that happens to you as a child can truly affect you later on in life. I think we forget that.
Where everything has been compounded.
Yeah.
Just compounds on the shit on itself. Issues.
Right.
And was there what led us down that path was asking who you were
To who I am now, yeah.
Say that at this point that was your catalyst to actually have some introspection.
What part was my catalyst? Absolutely. So we'll jump forward a little bit. You know, through my marriage, we had our ups and downs. A lot of it stemmed from how I continued to treat women and how I thought I needed to treat women to protect myself. Like, there's this whole idea to protect myself. Completely fucked up idea. Was not healthy in any way, shape, or form. Should not have been thinking that way. It was not a healthy way to think. And later on in my marriage, things started getting a little bit more hectic. You know, we were together for 15 years, married for 13, and just towards the end of the marriage, a lot more arguments, fights, stuff like that. And some, I gotta be honest, some experimentation within the marriage when it came to sex and stuff like that was being made. And it got to me because I didn't know how to respond to it. I know how to respond to it now, which is very healthy now, I think, but prior to, I was having a really hard time with it because it meant, well, if she wants to do anything with anybody else, it must mean she not like me, right? And if she doesn't like me, I didn't understand at the time it was supposed to be a couple things. Like it gets way deeper, and I don't want to really get too much into it, but it got to me, and it got to me in an unhealthy, and I responded to it in a completely unhealthy manner. In saying all that, my wife and I at the time were having a lot of fights, a lot of arguments, and I was going through, I've had a lot of stuff happen to me at work and things I was exposed to at work as well that were just more compiling on, more and more and more. And I just had a break one day and I put a rifle to the bottom of my head and I couldn't find the rounds. I couldn't explain. In my head, there was like two different people yelling at each other. What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? This isn't right. What are you doing? Like, and the other part was going, this is how you take care of everything. This is how you solve all the problems. Your money problems will be taken care of. You won't be fighting anymore. Your kids are going to be better off financially. Like all these, what seem to be logical ideas are just constantly running through your head. They're not logical at all. But at that time, your emotions are so fucked and your brain is so messed up in thinking and how you think that these ideas seem right. They seem like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if I do this, they get taken care of. So many of these issues change. And it wasn't so much, it's funny to think of it now, it wasn't so much that I was so concerned with my hurt stopping, which it just would have been a benefit that my hurt was stopping, but I was going to be helping out other people too, right? Like, I'm not going to be this burden anymore. Like, that's going to help a lot of people to not be a burden to them anymore. And that's what? I go back and think of it now, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Who am I to say that I'm a burden to somebody? I can't say that. I can't say I'm a burden to you if you've never told me that I'm a burden to you.
We are our owners.
Absolutely, we are an worst enemy. And we think that because we feel like a burden to ourselves, then we must be a burden to these people in our lives, right? We have to be. There's no other logical explanation. Why would anybody else want to be around us? We're fucking hurting all the time. We're a burden to ourselves. We can't wake up in the morning. It takes forever to get out of bed. We don't want to live. We don't want to go out and enjoy life. We don't want to have happy times. And when we do have happy times, we're wondering, hey, when is the rug going to get pulled out from underneath us? Because it always fucking does, right? Instead of, hey, we're having a good time. Let's just enjoy it for what it is. And that understand that life is going to have the ups and downs. And then the ups are there and the downs are there. And you strive for a state of just being okay, content, just being content. Peace. You don't always have to be happy. I tell you what, you ever find somebody that's always happy? Run. There's something wrong. You got something screwy up there, right? It's just the same thing as somebody that's always sad. You know, they need help. You need to find somebody that can enjoy the good times, understand the bad, learn from them, but just be content, be at peace, be okay. Just be okay. It's okay to just be okay. You know, we always hear it's okay to not be okay, and that's true. It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there. But that doesn't mean we strive for the fucking completely opposite of the spectrum and go for total enlightenment and happiness. That's unrealistic. Going from complete sadness and deprivation and hate and sorrow to wanting to go all the way to this enlightenment and happiness and peacefulness. Like it doesn't work that way. You got to find an equal medium. You're constantly striving for this thing over here, you're never going to obtain it. And when you do, it's not going to last forever because it's not meant to last forever. Just like pain isn't meant to last forever. But we don't understand those concepts. We don't understand the concept of just being center. Allowing the bad to be the bad, allowing the good to be the good, and then come back to center. We always want to be high, or sometimes some people just can't find themselves out of the low. And I was the point where I couldn't find myself out of the low, and I was constantly striving for the happiness.
Would you say that you were comfortable?
You know, that's a good question, and I've been asked that before. Where you say it was just a comfortable spot is what you were used to, right? It's just where you always lived. It's where your house was. And part of it might be true. Part of it might be like, yeah, it's how I learned to survive. That's where I knew how to survive. It wasn't a comfortable survival, but it's where I learned to survive. And so my mind, even though I'm depressed, sad, and angry all the time, my mind is saying, we're going to stay here because at least you're alive. At least you're surviving, right? And then at times when things are going really, really good and stuff, you self-sabotage because your mind doesn't understand that. Your mind doesn't understand good times. Your mind doesn't understand those things. And it's like, whoa, what is this? I don't know how to survive this. This is completely new. I don't know, like, what is this thing? I know how to survive this mindset, this environment. Let me put some feelers out there and see if we can kind of head back that way. And that's where the self-deprecation, the self-loathing, putting ourselves, back into that spot without even realizing it, because our minds are we're just, I wouldn't say comfortable, we just understand survival in that aspect. The mind's a really fucked up thing. And that was a truck. That was not me taking a shit. No, it was this whole realization after everything that happened when it came to my attempt, right? And there's so much more that goes into that too, by the way. And I do want to get into it. But in the long and short of it, it was finally realizing that I didn't have to always strive to be happy. And I didn't have to be okay with being sad and depressed and anxious all the time. I didn't have to be okay there. Like, I didn't have to be comfortable there. I didn't have to survive there. Even though that's where I knew how to survive, I didn't have to just survive there. I can survive in just being okay. Nothing good happening, nothing bad happening, just being.
What created the desire to want something?
That's a good question. What created the desire to want something different? It started when I put the gun in my head. And I did this in front of my wife at the time. And, you know, I'm not going to say anything bad about her. I understand that I put her through a traumatic experience, which is not fair to her in any way, shape, or form. Do I believe she could have responded differently? Absolutely. I don't think saying, well, if you're going to do it, just do it, is the best thing to say if somebody's going through that. But at the same time, I do understand that she was put through a situation she didn't ask for either. So I got to be mindful, and I got to respect that as well. So it's this weird parallel of, well, should she have responded differently? Maybe, sure, but she responded in a way that she felt was protecting herself. So at the same time, it's kind of like, I want to understand why she reacted the way she did and how she reacted, and I do understand it, but at the same time, it's like, come on.
Did that drive deep? Or...
Oh, it drove me deeper. It absolutely drove me deeper. I went and got help, and shortly after that, we went back to couples counseling therapy again, and, you know, marriage therapy and counseling and stuff. And it was the same old song and dance. We're gonna fix the things that are causing issues within the marriage. We're not gonna really work on you. She's not really working on her. We're just fixing the things that are causing problems in the marriage, right? And so, yeah, exactly. You're not,
surface.
Yeah, you're not really going to the heart of the issue, which was my mind and my depression and where I was at. And it was, so after that happened, I left the house for about 2 weeks, went to my parents' house, stayed there for a couple weeks. We started marriage counseling again and everything else, and things started going good again. She just, for some reason, couldn't get over that I hurt her by putting her through what I did. That was her words, that she can't get over what I put her through. Me having my suicide attempt and putting a gun in my head and stuff like that. Like, apparently that was, I'm not gonna say anything bad. Apparently that was more concerning for her than the fact that I even got there, was the fact that I even put her through that. Sucks for me, because I wanted her to be there for me, because I needed her. But she was more concerned with the fact that I even put her through that, which, you know, again, I understand that point of view. I don't necessarily agree with it, right?
Well, it's selfish.
And it's okay to be selfish with your mental health. It's okay to be selfish with your what you do to feel comfortable, to feel safe, right? I don't know, for me, I would have handled it differently. But I can't put what I would have done on her.
You would imagine there were signs.
Yeah, and there probably was, and I probably ignored them. Oh, my mental health? Oh, absolutely there was. And we both probably ignored them.
And so that's what I mean by selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Not to hijack the conversation, but just real quick, a lot of times people these days get into a relationship and they're more focused on how can this relationship serve me?
Yeah.
Not how can I serve this relationship? So if it's not meeting my needs, I'm out. But if we both are focused on meeting each other's needs.
Right. Exactly. Oh, I agree with you.
So we can get back to that idea of relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is it's selfish because that was the nature of the relationship. Is you have
Exactly. I think that's what the mentality was.
the sign should have been seen. Should have been compassion, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all guilty of it. It's not an easy thing to do in a relationship with yourself.
Right.
But just wanted to point that out, that though you can understand the position doesn't understand.
I'm not saying it makes it right or wrong. I'm not saying it makes it right, wrong, or indifferent. I get that, but I am saying I understood it. Like I get the perspective. I understand the perspective. I'll say that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or indifferent. I don't want to, because it's not my place. Personally, I can obviously I can say I didn't agree with it, but for her well-being, it's not my place to say. Right? So I'm very careful with how I speak about that. You know, a lot of this and where it stemmed from, well, obviously was relationship issues and stuff like that. And what we haven't really gotten into is how the job played into all this as well. Right.
Real quick, I did think of something.
Okay.
Kind of touching back on what we talked to previously. You know, you have this whole nature of just shutting down when things happen, so you never really created this kind of speech about things. And whether the reasons were right or wrong in the very beginning.
Right.
The very first issue created the habit of, well, I'm not going to say that. For whatever reason, it's back.
Right.
There was that habit of constantly upset. And for men, that's very detrimental. And it sounds like it played a very large role in a lot of relationships. And
absolutely. I was absolutely fighting on my own. It didn't feel like I was fighting on. I was fighting on my own. It's funny you say that, because I never really thought about it like that. I shut down all the time. So even if she did ask what was going on or something, maybe I just shut down and I was quiet, and maybe that's on me. You know, that could very well be on me. I always just shut down and said nothing until it was too late, or almost too late, phrase. And a lot of that actually got, you know, that whole staying silent actually got, what's the word I'm looking for, amplified when I got into the job that I'm doing. And this is where the job ties into everything, right? Being a firefighter, civil service member. We're taught to stay quiet. You know, like we're taught, like, if you can't handle the heat, get the fuck out the kitchen. You know, give the hose to somebody else. Get the fuck out. They'll take care of it.
So a lot of compromise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when shit bothered you, you don't say nothing about it, right? At the same time, we were also told that when there's a problem or when there's an issue, right? Problem, solution, perform, fix, done. And that was instilled in me when I started the job. Well, a young 20-something-year-old kid, and this is how problems are fixed. Ah, okay. This is how problems there. Let's find the solution, perform the solution. It's fixed. Let's move on. Job done. Where's the next one? What happens is we forget to kind of turn that off when we come home. There's so much more entailed when there's a problem at home. There's emotions involved. There's reasons, right? And then you're right, there's two people looking at it, one problem with completely different outlook on that problem, how to fix it. And it wasn't very fair to my spouse at home when, you know, and I use this analogy a lot, and it's just an analogy, but like, you come home, the laundry's not done. You've been home all day, you didn't do the laundry. Okay, fine, I'll get the laundry done right now. Laundry's done, laundry started, folded, done. All right. Well, that's not the problem. What do you mean that's not the problem? You were upset about the laundry not being done. What do you mean that's not the problem? Just the fact that I had to tell you to do it. Who cares if you had to tell me to do it? It got done. Like, why is this an issue? It's done now. Let it go. Well, it's not fair to her because she's like, there's something deeper. There's a deeper meaning to our spouse as to why something's not done or why there's an issue at home. It's not as easy as there's a problem, figured out the solution, perform the solution, it's done. Like, let's move on. It's not that easy at home because there's emotions involved. They don't think that way. They're not, most people are not bred or made to think that way.
It solved the problem for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely solved the problem for me. And I was just like, okay, I don't know why this is an issue. Why are we arguing about this? It's done. It's taken care of. Like, why are we still talking about this?
And at that point, we should.
And then, yeah, and then, of course, if it kept going on, I just shut down and be like, you know what? Whatever. Keep talking in my ear, yell at me, whatever you have to do. I'm done. I'm done. The issue was taken care of. But the actual issue was not taken care of. The problem that brought up the issue got taken care of. The issue itself was never taken care of. It was never addressed. And it wasn't fair to her. It wasn't fair to me either because I didn't understand what was going on. Like, nobody ever teaches us that this is a mindset that could possibly be detrimental in our relationships when we're going in school. Like, there's no mental health teaching in fire training. There's no mental health teaching. I mean, it's just starting now in the military, but before then, it was just like, you might see some shit. If you do, you need to talk to somebody. Go ahead. If not, all right, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to load your weapon here, or then you're going to put on the gear here, or, you know, it just gets brushed over. Like, I can tell you exactly what was said when it came to the seeing bad calls in my fire academy. It was literally, hey, you guys might see some shit. See if you can talk to somebody about it. And if not, you know, don't know what to tell you. So the pumping, when you start pumping the engine, this and that, it was like brushed over. They didn't fucking care. Nobody cares. It's that whole, if you can't do the job, don't fucking do it. You're going to see shit. If you can't handle it, don't do the job. And it's not, I never understood that because I can still do the job. It can affect me, but I can still do the job. People have bad days at work all the time. Just because they have a bad day at work, you're not going to tell them to quit. No, they had a bad day at work. It's okay to have a bad day at work. For us, it's a little bit more extreme at times, I would say, but it doesn't mean that they can't do the job. They just might need some help working through that bad day. And there shouldn't be anything wrong with asking for that help working through the bad day. My two biggest issues and two biggest calls I had at work, and I'll never fucking forget them. I'll never forget them. And those things played into how I react, the shutting down. I saw them, I was exposed to them, never said anything about them until after my attempts and after my self-harm. You know, I talk about my self-harm a lot. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on the video or not, but I got this big ass scar on my arm. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. But there you go. I have this big ass scar right here on my arm. I did that to myself. And that was after an argument. And it was after that that I knew I needed to get help. I had to sew it up at home because had I gone to the ER or to the urgent care, they would have admitted me. They're going to ask, how did it happen? I'm going to tell them, well, I sliced a knife across my arm 3 or 4 times until it did that. No, I didn't want to go and tell them that. I still had to work, still had to provide for my family. So I sewed it up with some regular.
So show it for public once, right?
Yep. Still had to go to work. Still had to do everything.
Shortly after that, that's when we met.
Yep. Shortly after that is when we met. Yep. You remember seeing it? Yeah.
We had a bandage.
I had a bandage on it, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, 3 years ago. That's when I knew I needed help. And I had a mental breakdown in Vegas too. I don't know if you remember that. It was in front of the casino. You might have not been there. I had a complete mental breakdown. That's no here or there. But it was shortly after all that I went and I decided to leave the house to go get help. Like I knew at that point that if I continued going down the road I was going, I was going to be dead by my own hand. Shortly after that, I knew I was. So, I don't know where we were going with this. I know we've been rambling on a bit. I was talking about
mental health and the way that they tell you to handle it in civil service, first responders, military, whatever. The mentality, these are all very much male
dominated. Yeah, they're male dominated fields. Yeah, absolutely.
From the outset. The mentality that men have been forced to have, suck it up, move on. It's very evident in these fields. We were saying it's getting a little bit better in the military. There is some training on it. However, they still have that. A lot still have that mentality. Is this a part of your mission with WhatMakesUsFire? To highlight this problem and the fact that just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean it's...
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest missions of WhatMakesUsFire is to kill the stigma, right? Stigma being we can't talk about it, we can't share it, nut up or shut up, you know, those type of things. That whole idea that we can't speak about what's bothering us, what's hurting us, the invisible, you know, injuries that nobody sees, like it's okay for us to talk about them, right? I guarantee you there's probably nowadays, like if we had a broken arm and we can hide it, we would probably do our best to hide it and continue doing the job, right? But that's not healthy. You're not going to help anybody. You're putting yourself at risk and the people around you at risk when you're injured and when you're hurt. And you're going back to the military thing. Yes, the military has gotten leaps and bounds ahead of the civil service, the first responder realm. The leaps and bounds ahead in advocacy, awareness, programs, training. They're way ahead. The first responder realm, we're catching up. We're catching up. Things are being done as they should, but we are still way behind the curve. We're still fighting that idea, right? We don't have something like the 22 a day, right? We don't have that kind of publicity, I guess I would call it, which it's needed. I'm not saying it's not needed. Like it should definitely be there. People should definitely be aware of what's going on with our civil service members, our military men and women, especially if they notice somebody's not doing too well, they have a better idea of what they can do. But in the first responder realm, like nobody talks about it. Nobody knows about it. Nobody knows we're 4 times more likely to commit suicide than the general population. Nobody knows we're 10 times more likely to develop a mental health disease. You know, nobody knows those numbers. Nobody knows that more firefighters died via suicide in 2019 than they did in the line of duty.
That's also a fact I wanted to touch base with you. Is a lot of people, myself included, we never really consider the fact that y'all aren't just firefighters. Right? You guys don't just respond to building fires.
Oh, no. Yeah, EMTs, medics as well. I mean, we see, I think it was like 85 to 90% of our calls are medical calls. You know, medical calls either stemming from a car accident or straight up just strokes or diabetes or sick, whatever, heart attacks, you know, seizures, things like that. We respond to so much more medical calls than we do actual fire calls, and trauma calls is what I call it, like car wrecks and stuff like that, falls. Now, those are trauma calls to us that we respond to a lot. Rescues, things like that. That counts for a small percentage of what we deal with. We see a lot of sick people, a lot of hurting people, a lot of people hurting, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. We see a lot of it. And you made a point that we are not just firefighters, and military servicemen and women are not just military servicemen and women. Like, that's not all that they are. I think there's this huge disconnect of people forgetting that we're all human beings first. First and foremost, beyond everything else, we're human beings with feelings, emotions, families, financial stresses, life, regular life stresses. People forget about that. They forget that this soldier coming back from war has PTSD, but it could be stemming from so much more. It could be because he went through a traumatic experience as a child and didn't know how to react when he was involved in another traumatic experience as a serviceman. It's what happened to me. I was exposed to some really fucked up shit that I will never forget. And just talking about it right now, I already see the pictures in my head. They will never go away. Of a burnt body with the eyes looking up at me. Of an 8-year-old kid's brains and skull on my pants. Those will never go away. But because I never learned how to deal with the stresses that I went through and the traumas I went through before I even got into the job, I responded to it the same way. Complete silence. Complete silence. Said nothing. Try to deal with it on my own. Try to forget about it. Try to numb it, whether it be alcohol or drugs or, overdoing it at the gym or some type of addiction, nicotine, whatever.
Did it change how you perceive
the experience I had at the job, or?
It sounds good. A lot of what saying is, you would show yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
Show them. And that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So just to come right at it, like, did that in your experiences with fire, did all of these combine? Not fully, but did it kind of create?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll admit it. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I saw, of all things, I saw a TikTok of a first responder. It said, "We're selective sociopaths." What? She goes, "Yeah, we know how to turn it on and off. We know when to be empathetic and when not to be. Some of us forget to turn it back on. Some of us don't know how." I was definitely the not know how. The job got so the job that my empathy was few and far between. With my kids, my wife, my friends, my empathy was almost non-existent. I can definitely tie that to the job, because whenever we go to a job, when that tone hits and somebody's hurt and there's a job to do, they're no longer Joe or Sarah or Sally or Jake. They don't have names. That's job number 1, job number 2. This is what job number 1 needs to be done to be taken care of. This is what job number 2 needs to be done taken care of. You block out the screams, you block out the yelling, you block out all the other noise, you block out the blood that you're in, the vomit, the piss, the sweat, the tears. You block out all the heavy equipment, you block out the smells, everything, because there's a job to be done. And then you go back home and you eat the rest of your spaghetti that you were interrupted eating. And when you go home and somebody has an issue, yeah, here's job number 1, here's job number 2. It's figure out how to fix job number 1, because once job number 1's done, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. And that's not fair. It's not fair to friends, family. It's not fair to anybody. Nobody teaches us, though. Nobody teaches us, like, hey, be mindful of that. Nobody lets us know that this is a possibility, that we are literally, you're rewiring your brain to be able to handle these things. To be able to handle the 3-month-old baby that's not breathing, you're doing CPR on, and then going back to the station and finishing your lunch. You know, nobody tells us that that's not normal. They tell us, oh, it's normal for the job. Well, if it's normal for the job, then I guess I'm just going to have to deal and then go on doing it. Nobody tells you in the military that it's not normal to be shot at as a human being on a day-to-day basis. They tell you it's normal for the job. It's normal for what you're going to be doing.
Well, I'll break it down a little more simpler.
Right.
But essentially, normal for the job is when you go to a restaurant, you seat yourself in the very back. It's a wall, so you see the exits, have an exit strategy. Keeping your head on the swivel at all times. Like, that's normal for the job. Is keep your head on the swivel.
Right.
Like when things are coming up behind you, so this is the mentality that you have. And even simpler, if you go to a combat assignment, which we did for almost 20 years,
Right.
you had to wake up every day and be okay with the fact that you could die. So it could be your last day. And that was the norm.
And nobody tells you that that's not normal thinking as a human being, as every day. It's the same thing for first responders, firefighters, cops, EMTs, nurses. Nobody tells you this could be your last day. Who knows if you're going to be involved and get contact with a really sick patient that you're going to end up catching and dying. Nobody tells you those things. Nobody tells, like, we're aware of it, but nobody tells you that it's not normal to always be aware of it. Like, that's not a normal thought process. You know, a normal thought process is like, oh, I got to pay the bills tomorrow, or oh, the normal everyday shit. Like that's normal stresses. Those are what I would consider normal stresses and stuff. But nobody tells you that you need to be worried on whether or not you're going to be going home when you go to work. And we don't talk about it. I don't think anybody on the job ever fucking talks about it. But it's there. We all know it.
I guarantee you, Jim.
Oh, we fucking joke about it all the damn time.
Well, no.
Oh, yeah. Dark humor? Yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely. The thing, what's crazy about, and for anybody that doesn't understand dark humor and think that it's completely distasteful and everything else, I get their sentiment. I understand where they're coming from. But you have to also remember that dark humor allows us to take control over what's killing us inside and not have what's killing us inside take over us and actually kill us. Like, the situation itself, not funny. Nobody wants to be involved in a dead child. Nobody wants to be involved within a firefight. Nobody wants to be involved getting shot at. Nobody wants those things, right? But when we joke about it and we make dark humor jokes about it, we no longer allow the situation to control how we feel. We're controlling how we feel about it by joking about it. And it's no longer controlling us and telling us how to feel. And that's why dark humor is for a lot of civil service members, first responders, military men and women. That's why it is. And a lot of people don't get it. And to be honest with you, I don't care that they don't get it. It's this really cool thing. If you don't like what you're hearing, walk away. Change the channel, swipe, whatever you got to do. Plug your ears.
The other portion of that too is when you're in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and there's that, whatever situation it is, there's that dark humor that's helping you to cope in that moment. Because, then you can push through.
Right.
So a lot of things are, like in that moment, it's very traumatic.
No, absolutely. It's very traumatic. But in that moment, in that traumatic moment, we don't think of it as a trauma. As civil service members, first responders, you don't think of it, oh my God, this is a trauma. This is going to fuck me up for the rest of my life. You don't think that. You're thinking, all right, what do I got to do to get myself out of it? What do I got to do to fix the solution? What do I got to do? Like I said, it becomes a job, right? The trauma it's not trauma at that time. It's a job. And it's not until we go back home, finish our lunch, take a nap, and then wake up in cold sweats and have nightmares about it that we realize, fuck. Yeah, that shit probably hit me a lot harder than I thought. I'm not going to tell anybody about it, but, you know, we don't realize it in the moment. I don't think anybody really, truly, honestly, let me rephrase. I think most people don't understand the trauma that they're going through when they're going through it. It's just happening. It's just happening around them, and they don't know how to react, or they're reacting in the best way to keep them alive. Survival, fight or flight. And it's not this idea of, well, this is going to fuck me up for the rest of my life. Nobody has that thought process. And if they do, they're way more self-aware than anybody I've ever met, which is good for them, but I don't think that's the norm. I really don't. If it was, that'd be great. Then people would, you know, they'd be a lot better off. But it's not that way. We don't think that way. We're human beings first. Human beings have the fight or flight and survival mode when it comes to trauma and when it comes to stress. And it's the same thing with civil service members. It's fight or flight, stress. How are we going to deal with it? What are we going to do to overcome it? What do we need to do to compensate for it? And then move forward. And that was something I had to deal with. Right? When I put that gun to my head, my fight or flight was going off like crazy, but it was going on within myself. Right? It wasn't anything that I could push away or anything on the outside, because it was in my head that I was having this fight or flight moment. Like, do it, don't do it. It's a good idea, it's not a good idea. What are you doing? What's going on? I'm not understanding what's going on. The other part of my brain is like, you know exactly what's going on. You know exactly what you need to do. It was this weird, like, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, good devil, angel on the shoulders, having these battles in your head, and you're wondering, what do I do? How do I fix this? I need help. And it just comes down to that. It came down to finally saying, I need help. I can't do this on my own. When I sliced my arm open, I knew then, like, I am done. If I don't get help, I'm not going to be a father anymore. I'm not even going to be able to try to be a husband. I'm not going to be a firefighter anymore. I'm not going to be a son anymore. I'm not going to be a friend. And there was a part of me that still wanted that. I still wanted to be all those things. And that's when I knew, like, if I still want those things, even just a little bit, that I needed to fight for. Because whatever I was doing was not working. Nobody intentionally slices their arm open and puts a gun to their head. Like, that's not normal human behavior. Normal human behavior is to survive. At all costs, we survive. That's what normal human behavior is. That's what the majority, when I say normal, you know, people are like, well, what's normal? What normal is what the majority of a population does. What normal is to survive. We are meant to survive. Any mammal, animal on this planet wants to survive. It's either procreate or survive. Like, those are the two main reasons why most animals are alive on this earth. To procreate and survive, so we can procreate some more. Exactly. And when we are finally get to that point where survival is no longer an option, like, that should be telling us something's wrong. Your brain's not working right. And that's what I had to do. I had to come to that realization. I had to suck it up and admit, I'm not okay. My mind's not working right.
You've never seen a deer?
No, you've never seen that. You've seen deers walk up to hunters, and the hunter's going, I don't know what to do. If you notice, the hunter never pulls the trigger on a deer that's actually walking straight to him. Unless it's attacking him, that's a different story. But, like, you see all these videos of deers literally walking up to these hunters, just sniffing them out. You never see the hunter pull a gun up, never see the hunter, I mean, it just doesn't happen. Why? So we inherently know that that's just not right. You don't do that to something like that. So why are we doing it to ourselves? Why are we putting the gun to our heads? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And I had to admit to myself the way I was living my life, what I thought was right, the way I thought to survive was working. I had to admit to myself that it's not working. The way I thought living life should be for my survival is the way it should be. I had to admit I was wrong. And nobody likes to admit they're wrong. Very few people like to admit they're wrong. And it took me a long time to admit that I was wrong. Yeah, all this stuff that we're talking about goes to why I started What Makes Us Fire and everything. You know, before I got to that point of putting the gun to my head, before I got to the point of slicing my arm open, before I got to the point of even looking for help the way I did, I had an option to go to a facility. It was a few months before everything went down. I had the option to go get help because I started noticing something. I started noticing that there's something going on. I need help. I even talked to my wife at the time and said, hey, I'm gonna do this because I need help. And she was okay with it. I go, yeah, let's do it. Talked to the facility. They're like, yeah, we'll take you on. You should actually be here. And I couldn't go. Not because I couldn't afford it. I had insurance. You know, I could make payments, whatever. But they were telling me, you might be here for a month and a half to 2 months. They're telling me, you might be at this facility for a month and a half to 2 months. Okay. How are my bills going to get paid? I work overtime. I have a second job. I'm the only one working in my family right now. We cannot survive on my baseline income. Like, I need to work over my second job, my overtime. Well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Well, I guess I'm not going then. My family comes first. I try to figure this shit out on my own. Worst decision I ever made in my life. I didn't know at the time that it was going to be the worst decision. I thought I was making a great decision, continuing working to take care of my family. I thought that was the decision that needed to be made. I you know, like a lot of us, you know, our family and our friends come first. We take care of them, and then if we have enough time, we'll take care of ourselves. And that was my mentality. So I didn't go because I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to put my family through that financial struggle. And then a few months later, that's when everything went down. I didn't get the right help in between that time.
In retrospect, say it's worse. Better to have financial stress rather than mental stress. That comes. You're not feeling yourself.
No. That's a hard question to answer. In retrospect, would I have just went and had them suffer through financial stress? We also got to remember financial stress also causes a lot of mental stress, right? So how beneficial would it have been to go and take care of myself just to come back to financial stress all over again, right? It's a hard thing to answer because I don't know, but I can tell you that I probably would have been in a better headspace to handle that stress had I went. I probably would have been more healthier, more capable of handling that stress had I went and come back and had to deal with it. That's a hard thing to tell somebody, to say, hey, go ahead and go. Don't, you can figure out that stress later on. Well, I mean, when that's a stress that's already causing why they need to go, or part of the stress, right? It's a hard thing to tell somebody that. I do 100% believe that had I went and all that financial stress would have happened, when I got out of it, I would have been in a lot better headspace to deal with that stress, to handle that stress, and to work through it. I would have been better equipped to do that, but it wouldn't have taken away that stress. It still would have been there. So it's a crapshoot, really, when you think about it. Do I go and get this mental health help that's going to help me deal with these kind of stresses when I'm done, but it's not going to fix them? Or do I try to fix this stress or maintain the level of not having that stress while trying to fix my mental health? It's a catch-22. Double-edged sword, man.
Is WhatMakesUsFire built in such a way that it leads to revolution?
That's the goal, yeah.
So that folks don't have to worry about that income during
Yes. And that's why I created it. The idea was, I don't want somebody to have to forego that treatment any longer than they need. There's a big problem in the VA that somebody would be like, hey, I need some mental health help. The VA will be like, okay, we can get you in about 3 months. It's like, mental health is not a 3-month waiting period type of thing. Like, when somebody needs help, they need help now. And the same thing goes with first responders. If there's anything that's holding us back from getting that help, that thing should be mitigated some way, somehow. For me, it was financial. And I knew if I had to make that decision, there was probably a lot of others within the realm of what we do that are having to make that decision. They're like, yeah, I would love to go get this help. I can't. I need to take care of my family. I got bills to pay. I got all this other stuff. Like, I got a job. 80%, 80+% of North America firefighters and first responders are volunteer. Their job's not going to cover. Their job's not going to cover them going to get mental health help because of the shit that they've seen at their volunteer, fire department. No one's going to pay them. So WhatMakesUsFire is meant to mitigate that, to take care of that. Not only are we taking care of the actual treatment costs, which is going to allow anybody, veteran or first responder, go to any inpatient facility that best benefits them. Not being held back by insurance, not being held back by what the VA is going to offer or not offer, not being held back by location, right? We will find the best facility for what they need and get them there. They don't have to worry about anything else. And then on top of that, we supplement their income for the time that they're there. We supplement that income. We take care of everything, take care of their family, their financial needs are completely met. So that stress isn't there when they get out. That's what I was afraid of. I didn't want to put my family through any type of financial stress while I was gone. I was already stressed the fuck out already enough as it is. I didn't need to put my family through that, right? So that's what makes us fire. That's the main goal, right? That's the main mission for helping our civil service members. But it goes beyond the whole taking care of the costs and supplementing, the income. Like, it's way more than that, because when you really, really look at it deep down, the homelessness rates, the addiction rates, the drug use rates, the crime rates, a lot of these cities are all tied to mental health. Mental health is like the top 3 reasons why these things are so huge. The number 1 reason for homelessness is mental health, especially within our veteran community. That is the number 1 reason for homelessness, is mental health. Second is addiction, which falls into mental health.
And I would say it causes mental health.
Right. It's a fucking loop. So if we're able to take care of the main issue, if we can get these individuals that help, get their minds right, get them clean, get them thinking healthily, all those other stresses, the financial, the addiction, all those other things, they'll be able to think with a clear head, a healthy mind, and be able to make better decisions for themselves, their families, and those that are around them, so they can continue being that person for them and for themselves. If we can start tackling the main issue, homelessness will go down, addiction rates will go down, crime rates will go down. Like, that's a huge thing. Like, and it's all tied to mental health. That's the main issue, or at least one of the number 1 issues, is our mental health. If I can do something to help our veteran community and our first responder community in getting away from those numbers or lowering those numbers, I want to do it. Because I was almost one of those numbers. I was almost a statistic. I was almost a statistic. That word is so hard to say. I don't want a fellow brother or sister that is dedicating their lives to helping the communities that they serve, the nation that they serve, to stop them from doing that. I don't want them to have to stop doing that because they are sick. There's nothing, one of the worst feelings in the world is being medically retired or being told you can't do a job anymore because you're ill. Especially if it's a job you love or something you truly believe in. We need to change this mindset that having a mental health issue means you can't do anything. That's another thing that we're big into, that What Makes Us Fire is into. You know, I say what makes us fire? Yeah, I'm a firefighter. I get it. But it's more of a question, and it's more of a statement that the people that come onto the podcast, the people that become a part of this family, we're telling people this is what continues us going. This is what's making us fire. This is what's getting us going. This is what helps us through. This is what makes us fire. This is what makes us go. This is what makes us survive, thrive, and be the people that not only now we're going to be able to take care of ourselves and our family, but we're going to be able to continue serving the communities that we want to serve. That's what Makes Us Fire is about. That's what I'm trying to tackle. That's the beyond helping with the actual treatment and the supplementing of the income. And, you know, we want to do a peer support line, and we want to do a mentorship program, and we want to do a gym, and like we have all these other ideas, right? These are all subcategories of the main mission, but the main mission is just to fucking, one, kill the stigma, and two, get our brothers and sisters the mental health help they need so they can continue being the brothers and sisters that serve their community, the things that they love to do in the first place, and the reason why they got into it to begin with. I almost stopped being that person, and I love doing the job that I do. As much stress as it's brought me, as much heartache that it's brought me, it is a job I love to do. It's the best job in the world. Hands down. You ask any firefighter, you ask most firefighters if they love their job. No. It's the best job in the world. It's the best job in the world. We get to play, we get to break shit, we get to put fires out, we get to do a lot of really cool shit. All in helping our communities. Military servicemen and women, most of them will say they'd go back in a heartbeat. So why are we not facilitating ways for them to do that? Why are we bringing them home saying good luck with the VA system? Why are we bringing them home telling them, you know what? You're a little fucked up. We can't send you back. Fucking give them the help. Send them back. I'm a depressed, anxious, PTSD-ridden firefighter. I'm a firefighter that has, let me make sure I say this correctly. I have depression, anxiety, and PTSD. I've been diagnosed with those things from my psychiatrist and my therapist. Really matters from my psychiatrist because they're the ones that are the MD and everything, right? So I was diagnosed by my psychiatrist. That doesn't mean I'm a depressed, anxious firefighter. It means I'm a firefighter that has depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Doesn't mean I can't do the job. Doesn't mean that certain things are going to fuck me up. Then there's firefighters that are firefighters with diabetes. There's firefighters with heart issues and health issues. They still do the job just fine. You're not going to tell them to stop doing the job because they have diabetes, are you? No. As long as they're treating it. Can it become detrimental? Fuck yeah, it can become detrimental. Any illness can become detrimental if you're not treating it. It's the same thing with mental health. If you're not treating it, fuck yeah, it can absolutely become detrimental. And I am a fucking poster child for that. I didn't treat it, and I damn near lost my life because of it. But now I'm treating it. Now I'm doing therapy. Now I'm seeing my psychiatrist. I'm taking meds. There's a lot of things that go into all that. But I'm treating it. It's no longer a detriment. I can still do my job just as well, if not better than the next guy. And the same goes for anybody else. Mental health is just an illness. You know, it's funny, I don't know, a lot of people might not understand this, or if they've never seen my social media or familiar with social media, Sir Veteran guy, Sean, he has this saying, and he put it all over his t-shirts. It's one of his brand. He goes, your diagnosis does not define you. Just because you have gout or just because you have diabetes doesn't mean you're diabetic boy or gout boy. It just means you're Joe with diabetes. It doesn't define who you are. It's the same thing that goes with mental health. Just because you have depression doesn't mean you're depressed Joe. You're just Joe with depression, and you treat it. Your diagnosis does not define you. And he's absolutely right. And we need to get away from that mentality, especially for people that don't understand mental health. They need to shut the fuck up and read a book. And that's a lot of our issues too, is the ignorance around mental health. A lot of our higher ups, our administrations, the people that are trying to take care of us, right? Taking us, a lot of cops, I hear this all the time, they don't want to say anything that's wrong because they feel like they're going to get their gun badge taken away, right? Because if they speak up, it must mean they can't do their job. Or their administration needs to shut the fuck up, read a book, and understand what mental health really is. Because if you start treating it, they can still do the job. If they need to go on a little bit of a sabbatical on a desk while they're getting treated, sure, but don't take them away forever. Don't. And I get the idea as to why. Same thing within the fire service, same thing within the medical field. I get it. Military service, I get it. If you need to take a few months to take care of yourself and you might not get to go back right away, hey, that's just part of the process of you getting better. But our administration doesn't need to put the fear of you'll never go back into our heads. Because that is, one, it's unfair, two, it's completely untrue. We can be treated, we can get better, and we can be even better than we were before because now we're actually being treated.
We're actually receiving it.
Yeah, you're receiving the tools, and you can actually utilize the tools that you never knew were there before because you were always too scared to say anything.
Where you're never told, right? How do I?
Nobody tells you.
Told.
I can tell you right.
They expect you to still not be told, but continue to do your job correctly.
Exactly. And here's the thing. So I've always said it's an ignorance, and I'm not saying it's an ignorance like, oh, they're just being ignorant, right? No, like ignorance. There's a lack of knowledge, huge lack of knowledge about mental health within our administrations and our higher ups that supervise us and that guide us and do all those things. So it's just a lack of ignorance. It's a lack of understanding. And yeah, we're never told about anything because we're always told, don't say anything. Again, it's that circle, right? Don't say anything. Well, if I don't say anything, I'll never learn how to deal with it. But if I don't learn how to deal with it, then I'm just going to get worse. And if I get worse, then it's going to get to that point. But I shouldn't say anything. Well, then how do I fix it? I don't know. You can't say anything. So what I would say is the number one thing anybody can do to get their mental health right, the first thing you need to do is you need to stare in that mirror and have a conversation with yourself. Write it in a journal. Look in a video camera. Have that conversation with yourself. Do you need help? And if even just a little bit of you needs to say yes or wants to say yes, you know where you need to start. Second conversation is you let the people around you know that something's going on. So they understand it's not them. So they understand it's not necessarily the job or what they did, or it's just, you know, there's something going on and they can be there for you and understand you. Your friends, your family, your spouse, let them know, hey, there's something going on, but I'm working on it. And I need you to know because you're part of my life. Your friends, your work family, let them know so they understand. They're not talking shit behind your back. It's the biggest thing. When people don't know what's going on, they're going to talk shit about him. You're going to talk shit about you behind your back. especially when they don't know what the fuck's going on. Speak up. The third conversation you have is probably the most important one. That's with a professional. That's with somebody who understands how the mind works, how your mind works, or how a healthy mind should work. And start giving you the tools to start benefiting you in the future so you can continue being a better individual for yourself. It's okay to be selfish for yourself. Tired of hearing that, well, I do everything for my kids. I would never do anything bad because my kids mean more to me and I'm only here because of them, or I'm only here because of my wife, I'm only here because of my friends, I'm only here because of my family, my mom, I'm only here because of my dog. No, that's your excuse as to why you're only here. But you're not giving them everything that you truly can be, if that's your only reason for being here. If your only reason for being here is for somebody or something else, you're not giving them everything of you that you can possibly give, because you're not at 100%. So don't say you're giving them everything, because you're not. You're giving them the 30% left of yourself. You need to go take care of yourself and become 100% good with who you are, happy with who you are, where you want to be in life. You need to be 100% good with who you are so you can give that 100% self to the people you love and to the community that you serve around you. Because if you're not 100 good with yourself, you're not giving them everything. You're just giving them what's left.
It's almost like lip service, right?
Absolutely, it's lip service. And maybe that's what's helping you stick around for right now, but sooner or later that runs out. If you ever put faith in something else other than yourself when it comes to your mental health, you're gonna be disappointed. Human beings are fleeting. Things get old and broken. You are the only one that can control that. You're the only one that can truly say, I am good with who I am. And if this person leaves, it's gonna suck, but it's okay because I know I'm happy with who I am. But if I put all my faith into this one person, and if they leave or upset me, and now I feel like I'm nothing, you were never giving them 100% of you. Never. You need to be 100% good with who you are. And if that's through faith, if that's through therapy, if that's through whatever it is, being 100% with who you are, happy with who you are, good with where you're at and where you're going, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, then you are giving truly 100% to the people around you. But if you're not doing that, and if you're not there, if you're not that person for yourself, you are not, I promise you, you are not giving what you are saying you're giving. You're not. And that was a hard lesson I had to learn. My therapist threw that in my fucking face. She said, so why are you still here? My kids. I'm here for my kids. I'm here for my wife. I'm here for them. What do you mean you're here for them? Well, I give them everything. I do everything for them. Really? You give them everything? Yeah, absolutely. How are you giving them everything if you're sitting here and you're just telling me you wanted to kill yourself? Can you honestly say you're 100% good with who you are, and where you want to be? No. So how are you giving them 100% of you when you're not even giving yourself 100%? Ouch. So I'm doing a disservice to my kids. I'm doing a disservice to my friends and my family. I'm doing a disservice to the community I serve because I'm not there for me. And we learned this in training. Take care of yourself first, your partner second, your squad third, mission, and then the community. Why do you come first? Because if something happens to you, you become part of the fucking problem. You have to take care of yourself so you can give and take care of it for others. Oh man, I know I've been going on a big spiel, but yeah, that's why I wanted to do this. I wanted to give it out. This is all things that I've learned, and I wasn't there. This is brand new for me. And I'm still learning. I'm still struggling with some things from time. Just earlier this year, I gained almost 40 fucking pounds going through a depressant. You know, I went through a little depressed stage, gained almost 40 pounds. You saw me in fucking April. You saw me in Vegas. It's the second time you see me depressed as shit without even knowing it. I was, I wouldn't say I was fat, but I was fat. So I'm still learning. I'm still gaining knowledge and knowing that I am going to have bad times. But that's okay.
Wise man once said, his name is Joe Short.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not learning, you're probably dead.
If you're not learning, you're probably dead. Joe Short. Shit, if you're not breathing, you're probably dead too.
Probably.
Absolutely.
So, but the point is to learn. It sounds like you're doing. You want to provide that for others.
That's exactly what I want to do. And I want to do that through the help of other people.
Sorry,
That's it. I want to do that through the help of other people. Having them on the show, on the podcast, having them volunteer for the nonprofit. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit. Like, we're a legit nonprofit in the United States of America. American made, damn it. And you know, I have that the podcast staff, people like yourself and others, share their stories and what they went through and how they found their way through that mental struggle. The thing about mental health is it's not like a broken arm where there's a general way to fix it, right? Broken arm, there's generally a way where you're either going to set it, surgery, cast it up, therapy, you'll be good. You know, it's general rule of thumb for most people with broken arms. Thing is, if you and I have depression, the way you deal with it and the way you get yourself out of it can be 180 degrees different than how I get through it and get out of it. And so the more stories that are told, the more people that are willing to speak up and don't fucking call it being vulnerable. Don't call it being vulnerable. A lot of people are like, oh, I love that you're so vulnerable. You share all this stuff and makes you so vulnerable. No. Vulnerability is a weakness. When we talk about vulnerability, that's something somebody can use against you. That's a vulnerability. That is the definition of being vulnerable. It's having a weakness somebody can use against you, or an enemy can use against you. That is being fucking vulnerable. I'm speaking up and telling you what's going on with me. You can't use that against me anymore. I'm letting you know. Throw that in my face and be like, yeah, you're right. I just said that. Oh, you're depressed. Oh, you almost killed yourself. Yeah, I did. I did. I was depressed and I did almost kill myself. I'm sorry. What are you trying to prove? It's no longer a vulnerability. It's a strength. You can no longer use it against me.
It's like a crack in the metal. It was a weak spot.
It was.
A vulnerable. But then I will.
Yeah. I addressed it. Absolutely. It's when we ignore the crack that it becomes a vulnerability. It's when we ignore the weak spot in the wall, right? It's when we ignore those things that they can be used against us and exploited. But when we pay attention to them and we give them credence and we give them attention, those things get built up. You can't use that against me anymore. It's not a vulnerability. That's one thing I would like to try to change, is the way the vocabulary is used when we talk about our mental health. I'm a big advocate on vocabulary change for this mental health stuff. Stop saying it's okay to be vulnerable. They're not being vulnerable. As soon as they open their mouth and share, that vulnerability is gone. It's gone. It's no longer being vulnerable. Now they're showing you strength. Keeping their mouth shut, not saying anything about it, that's being vulnerable. It's not being strong. Because if somebody brought it up, it's going to hurt you. Because you don't want to face that it's actually happening. But if I'm the one that brings it up, and then you try to bring it up against me, I'll be like, yeah, you're right. I was just talking about that. Now you just look like an idiot. You're not going to hurt me.
Essentially, you want to reassign your power.
Exactly.
Power to the problem, or power to words. You might be like, God, the power isn't that person. It's that person. Because they can help themselves to be.
Yes, absolutely. That's something else that I want to hit on too. Stop telling me if I help you or if somebody helps you, don't tell them that they're the ones that saved your life. They didn't. You saved your own life. You made a choice. You made a decision. You made the hard decision to do something to change you. Whether it's a perception change, whether it was an action you needed to take. Now, when you talk to other people, did those different perceptions get put out in front of you? Perceptions you never thought would be there before? Sure, absolutely. Absolutely, they were there. They were there to help you, to guide you. But in the long run, you made the decision to help yourself. Right? In the long run, you made the decision to help yourself. Don't say thank you for saving. It's hard for me to accept people saying, hey, you helped save my life. No, I didn't. I gave you a different perspective. It was up to you to take that on. And if you took it on, that was your power. That was your strength. You did it. Nobody else did it. You're stronger than you think. You're stronger than you're giving yourself credit for. And I think that's what scares a lot of people, is they don't know how strong they are when it comes to starting to fight that mental health battle within themselves. They don't truly understand how strong they are. All it takes is just starting to speak up and being open to a different perception. And I promise you, if you take that on, that's your strength. That's nobody else's strength but your own. It's a big misconception that you need somebody else or something else. It's just you being open to that perception and taking it on and truly believing in it and moving forward with it. But yeah, I know we went through a lot, and I apologize, and I go on my soapbox and I get through it. We went through the beginning. We went through what I went through. We talked about how and why I got What Makes Us Fire into what it is and what I'm trying to make it into. And that's basically what I wanted to do. I wanted to share this story with people so they know that there is passion behind what I'm doing. There's a reason, there's a real reason behind what I'm doing. It started with my story, but What Makes Us Fire is no longer mine. It was my idea, sure, I'll take that. But it's not mine anymore. It's the people that believe in the mission and the idea, it's ours. And the only way it's going to grow is if we all come together and make it grow. And that's what I really am looking for through all this, through sharing my story, through sharing why I created What Makes Us Fire and what the purpose is. It's so much more than just getting them help at a facility and supplementing their income. It's so much more than that. It's the main mission, yes, but that's so much more than that. It's an idea, it's a cause. And I want people to get on board and help me with this, because I do need the help. So, unless you have any other questions, I'm going to sign off, man. And I really do appreciate you doing this for me.
You want to tell them where they can find your stuff?
Oh, yeah. Maybe I should do that. I probably should do that. And for anybody that does want to help with that mission and help with that cause, the biggest thing is to talking about us and sharing what we're about. And the first thing is social media. And we're on everything. TikTok, Instagram, X now, not Twitter. Formerly Twitter, now X. Facebook, Snapchat. you name it. We're on the social media, and it's What Makes Us Fire, all one word. It's What Makes Us Fire. You can find us. You'll see that logo right there in my hat, and you know you found us. If they want to do more than that, they want to be a part of volunteer or make a donation or anything like that, whatmakesusfire.org. They can find the podcast there, which gets thrown on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. And the biggest thing is sharing the mission, sharing the idea, and becoming a part. Be involved, speak up, jump into one of the lives.
You're here, folks. Be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem.
Yes, be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Look, there's a difference between awareness and awareness with action. Being aware is great. It lets people know that there is a problem, which is all well and good. But what's awareness without action? Awareness without action is just being aware. Awareness with action is being aware of the problem, trying to do something about it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do something about the problem. So, what makes us fire? Get to it. That was stupid. Don't put that part in there.